Hello and welcome back to this Downplayalistic Crusade. This will be a very short video, but I finally decided to partake in one of the mini sales on Gruv.com, in addition to their usual percentage off codes. They usually have a 10 or 20% off code running. I've never tried it before, but I've seen other people have great feedback and great experiences. If you're unaware, Gruv.com, spelled Gruv, is actually part of Universal, so this is used primarily as, I don't know if it's really clearancing out, but it is definitely getting rid of old Universal stock and also selling new Universal discs, which include not just TV seasons and complete box sets, but also mini DVDs, mini Blu-rays and collections, and also 4K titles. And especially combined with their sales, their free shipping once you hit a certain threshold, and of course the coupons they frequently have, these get absurdly cheap. So even on brand new 4K releases, the prices can get so low when the sales are running that, provided you get a copy in your cart before they run out of stock, which does happen, these are absurd savings really on some of these. So I've got a stack of titles I wanted to go over really quick, and all of these were staggeringly cheap. So some of these were titles I'd always wanted to get or meant to, or helped me fill out more of a collection of my own, and some were brand new releases that again were so absurdly cheap I just couldn't pass it up because I knew it wouldn't be, that cheap. These were like Black Friday pricing on some of these. So just to go through these really quickly. This first is a collection that is a bit of a mixed bag, but it's got the original slipcase, and it's really worth the purchasing price just for one of the titles alone on Blu-ray. And again, it's less than the cost of this film alone, and with this sale running, this was, like $6 or $7 for the whole thing. So I had to go ahead and grab the Coppola Directors Collection. This was something put out by Lionsgate a number of years ago. So again, I really didn't need this for the other titles. Apocalypse Now replicates the primary 2 discs from the old Blu-ray without all the extras. And of course, we have the new 4K set now. Then you have Tetro, so I get a bonus film, which I've seen. I saw it when it came out, but I haven't seen it since. It's also got a copy of One from the Heart, and this is a pretty crummy Blu-ray transfer. It's pretty notorious for being one that's just an absolute mess. So it's not really advisable to watch that film on the Blu-ray transfer. The reason why I went ahead and got this, though, is I've always wanted to get the US disc of The Conversation, which not only has the all-important mono mix of the film, but it does have some unique extras over the British version. So it's one of those titles where it is good to have both. Just been wanting to get that British one and always meant to get the US disc and just never got around to it. And then, of course, when you realize the US disc of The Conversation will cost you about $15 to $20 usually, and then all of a sudden you realize it's the identical disc in this set because all the discs are from the other releases that had previously been done. So here it is. This is the disc of The Conversation. So I was able to get it in this set for, like I said, about $7 total, which is just crazy. So now I've finally got the US Blu-ray and, got all the others in here as a bonus, even though I really didn't need the Apocalypse Now disc over again. I've got a copy of Tetro, and then I could look at the terrible transfer for One from the Heart for myself. Again, this is a really terrible Blu-ray, so not advisable to watch this film on this particular disc. I just got this for the very inexpensive method of getting a copy of The Conversation with the US extras, the really nice HD transfer, and the lossless mono mix, because this film is all about its sound, and the mono was not on the previous DVD, unfortunately. Going through the rest of the Blu-rays chronologically, this is a title I've had on my wish list. It's a brand new restoration, and this is one of the cases where the actual studio release here in the States is actually better than the foreign boutique label release. So this was done by, I believe, Masters of Cinema did it in the UK, and theirs is a great disc, but the encoding on here is just a little bit better. So I had to get the Universal restoration of the 1934 Cleopatra, directed by Cecil B. DeMille, starring the incredible Claudette Colbert. It's been a long while since I've seen this, and I've been wanting to see the restored version, which looks miles better than the old DVD and old transfers. Has a nice selection of extras plus a commentary, and again, it was under $10 for this title, because it's a, more of a niche title. You usually have to pay more for it. So it had been on my wish list, and I knew this is one of the handful of discs that's better than what you can get as an import. So it was crazy to see this in there. So if you're looking on the Gruv site and you're trying to find something that's a really nice deal for a great restoration plus some extras and a real classic, because it's one of the three great or notable Cleopatra films, this is a real winner, and I can't believe it was under $10. Pretty bare bones, of course. So the Masters of Cinema version will have the the booklet and the better packaging in terms of art and stuff. But again, in terms of the disc contents, the Universal actually edges it out slightly. So and that combined with the cheap cost, this is a no-brainer. Another one that rarely pops up in terms of sales, this was included, and I just immediately got it because I've been meaning to. They had the double feature release of both versions of Imitation of Life. So you get the original black and white version and the Douglas Sirk remake. This is a pretty nice package from Universal. It ports over, I believe most of these features were done for DVD at some point, and I think some new ones were done for this particular release. And then on top of that, you do have an audio commentary for each version, which I'm looking forward to checking out. I've seen both of them before, but it's been a long while, and I've never done the head-to-head comparison, so I'll be able to do that. It's just a standard Universal release otherwise, but it's one of their spiffier releases of a catalog title because, of course, it's an iconic pairing of the original and the remake version, and each one has its own positives. So I know there are fans of each, and I'll be looking forward to doing a direct head-to-head comparison finally. But again, another notable surprise that was in the sale, and with the 20% off coupon, it dropped it to around $10. So I was like, okay, I can finally check this off the wish list. Then there were a number of Blu-rays that were in a $5.99 sale. So stack on a 20% coupon off of those, and I was able to chip away at a couple Universal catalog titles I had been meaning to get for ages. This first one, I know it's an older transfer. It's not a super impressive Blu-ray, nor is it a special edition, but it's still the best edition currently around in terms of the latest release. So I had to get the original Cape Fear from 1962, directed by the forever underrated J. Lee Thompson. This is a heck of a thriller if you've never seen it. It's a classic for good reason, and builds to a ridiculous intensity from the way that the film holds back and builds suspense. And of course, the lead performances of Gregory Peck and Robert Mitchum are, beyond worth the price of admission. I know some people love the Scorsese remake, and it makes everything much more explicit, but I really didn't care for it at all. So this is one of the cases where I'm like, there's really no need to remake this. It was perfect as it was, and of course, being a gigantic fan of both Peck and especially Mitchum, it definitely tips the scales. But this is an older Universal catalog release. It's pretty decent. I'm pretty sure this ports the what was used on the final DVD. It has a little featurette, so it has a little bit of extra content, but otherwise it's just a standard disc. As you can see, the traditional Universal disc there. So yeah, essential film that I was finally able to get on Blu-ray for literally dirt cheap. And then last, for the cheap Blu-rays, this is an upgrade for me. I have the Canadian Alliance version, which was the only way you could get it on Blu-ray for some unknown reason. And then not too long ago, Universal finally put out a US disc, which I assumed was probably a little bit better in tech specs. I think the audio codec on this is supposed to be a little bit bigger than the Canadian one that I've had for a few years. So yeah, for some reason, if you were here in the States and you didn't import it, the only way you could see this film was on DVD. I don't know why this occurred, but I'm glad it's finally available. I wish it was a new transfer, and I wish this film would get a 4K release because it deserves it. This is one of the few modern films post-2000 that I'm absolutely gaga for, and that is the 2005 adaptation of John le Carré's The Constant Gardener. This is a fantastic film if you've never seen it. It goes hand in hand with le Carré's novel. Of course, that means it is insanely dark and gritty and full of real-world problems that don't have easy solutions. This was directed by Fernando Mirel after he did City of God, which is the famous, it was a foreign art film over here, but it became very famous very quickly and is still held up as one of the great, modern foreign films. So he was coming off of the wave of adoration on that film, and this was his big studio film. It shares a number of similarities with City of God, but I think the stronger story and the really great lead performances and the Lucari source material, this makes it edge out for me. So I actually prefer this to City of God. But I love the storyline. I love what the story is about, and it again is insanely dark. It's got a fantastic ending, and yeah, if you like City of God and you always wanted to see more like that, this is basically him getting to do a studio thriller, but choosing a Lucari novel and a very gripping and challenging and dark, long novel at that. I think it's a fantastic adaptation. I really love this picture, and I'm very happy that they carried over the extras from the DVD. So it's not one of those where you have to keep the DVD for the extras. Again, with lossless 5.1 as well. So this is the version you want to find, but most of the time when you order a copy of this online, chances are you will probably be shipped a copy of the Alliance Atlantis one, the old Canadian disc, so you will have to scrutinize that you've got the Universal one. But of course, ordering from the Universal website, pretty much guarantees you get a Universal American copy. So, of course, I did say they had a number, quite a lot, a whole television series sale, including many complete series box sets and things. And, of course, I glanced at that, but I didn't think there would be anything that I needed. And lo and behold, I was very thankfully wrong. They had a number of classic television series mixed in, and I was able to chip away at 2 seasons I was missing of the iconic Alfred Hitchcock Presents. So, unfortunately, this series has never been released in its complete form on DVD here in the U.S. They did 5 season releases, and then I believe season 6 was available on Amazon as a MOD DVD-R, but I think that you can't get that anymore. So I had a few of the seasons, but I was missing 2 of these. They only went to season 5, and these lovely matching fold-out digipack releases. So these have the slip boxes, and they all open like this. They all have matching designs, and they have wonderful episode inserts printed on, so you can tell which episode is where. And of course, unlike the notoriously difficult to watch first season that had the dreaded dual layer DVD 18s that Universal was so fond of, all the later ones are pressed DVD 9s single sided, so there's no playback issues. But these never pop up used. They still go for quite a bit when you try to buy them new. So it was really amazing to see these marked down to $9.99, and then of course stack that 20% off coupon on. So I was able to finally get the physical copies I was missing of season 3 and then season 5. And of course, the higher up you go in seasons, the more expensive and harder they are to get. So I was very happy to finally get these. I've had seasons 1, 2, and 4 for some time, and I've been meaning to do a rewatch of the series, so this was a really great timing. I do believe all 7 seasons are available for streaming in certain areas. I don't know if it's on the Embassy Peacock service because I don't really do streaming, but I have heard that at times the entire series is available for streaming. So it's unfortunate that we don't have the whole series on physical media. Of course, in Europe, they do. They made a complete box set because I guess they just wanted to screw us over. So here in the U.S., we still have to get the 5 press discs in these box sets, and then if you want to look at season 6 and 7, you have to hope that they're playing in syndication on a channel somewhere, or they're on the Peacock streaming service, or that hopefully most of all they eventually release the series on Blu-ray, because it doesn't have the iconic status of, say, the Twilight Zone, but it gets up there, and many of the episodes are as important as some of the great Twilight Zone episodes, especially since the master himself directed a number of episodes. So the fact that we don't have, all of those in HD, and it's only the same ones they add as extras to the films on Blu-ray that Universal puts out, it seems kind of silly. If you're going to do any classic television show in HD, you would think that Alfred Hitchcock Presents, eventually the Alfred Hitchcock Hour, that they would be, in your top tier choices. So hopefully that happens soon. But until then, it was really fantastic to finally get these other 2 I've been missing for dirt cheap. So it was a significant savings getting these for like, seven something. And speaking of significant savings, I saved the best for last. These were absurdly cheap. These are both brand new 4K UHD release box sets, and I was able to order these. They were not only on sale, but also that 20% off coupon stacked on them. So that made them cheaper than any Black Friday pricing. And then on top of that, I don't use digital copies. I have no use for them. So usually I sell them or give them away as gifts to people who actually use digital copies. So, that makes it even more of a savings, really. So these were just so cheap that I couldn't say no. And I knew that to see these ever get this inexpensive again, it would probably have to be Black Friday a number of years from now. So I just went ahead and got the two 4K box sets that Universal has put out. Each is a 4-film. I mean, they're collections, but I like to call these 4-film samplers because this is apparently what Universal has decided to do first with their Hitchcock titles. So they put out the 4K Classics Collection, giving you the sampler pack of 4 titles, the 4 most famous of the Universal held ones, Rear Window, Vertigo, Psycho, and The Birds. And I have to admit, the actual slip box is a lot nicer in your hand when you've got it here. Unfortunately, it is the sort of cardboard page design with the disc slotted in here, which is not my preferred method of handling discs. They have done some beautiful steel books with original poster art for these, but those are $25 a pop and usually Best Buy exclusives. But you can get all 4 titles in this box set when it's on sale, and with that 20% off coupon, it actually drops below $30, which is absurdly cheap for this. And in terms of the contents, it has the same extra features contents as what was on the Blu-ray, which is pretty much carry over what was on the DVDs beforehand. The Blu-rays themselves are the same exact thing as what was in the original Masterpiece Collection on Blu-ray. So, of course, even the labels are the same. I do like the fact that each page, even though it has the different format discs, they've actually printed on the top, as you can see. So the 4K page has the 4K logo and the Blu-ray page has the Blu-ray logo. So that way you don't accidentally grab the wrong one without thinking about it. They have gotten better at these. The pages feel a bit sturdier than when they started doing this on in the DVD era. Unfortunately, you can still scratch your discs up, taking them in and out, and you can get fingerprints on them. So usually with these, what I do is I just keep them in a separate case or a separate binder. Although I know binders aren't the greatest for storing Blu-rays, but I like to store them in an actual case. So that way, when I access them, I don't scratch things up. Of course, with Psycho, they did have the problem of the first pressings having not the original mono. It had a down mix of the absolutely abominable 5.1 remix they did. Fortunately, they did do the replacement process where you can get a replacement disc of both the UHD and the Blu-ray to get the correct and essential mono track. And otherwise, when you're buying a new copy of this set or a new copy in stores, so what you have to do is you have to actually slide the disc out. And as you can see, I'm being very careful, but you're going to get fingerprints on it no matter what you do. And you can hear how tight that is. I don't know. But, you have to be extremely careful with these. But on this, it's very nice that you can actually look on the top of the disc. You don't have to look at the underside. But if you've got your UHD and you take it out and you look right there, that 1150224, that is the correct number you want. So if you see that on there, you've got the corrected pressing. However, if you're still not quite convinced, there is an easy way to check when you play the disc, either the UHD or the Blu-ray. At the start of the iconic shower sequence when Marion Crane first goes into the bathroom, when she actually goes and turns on the spigot of or I should say, when she turns the handle of the act to actually turn on the shower, there's a loud squeaking noise in the remix that would also be on the down mix. So if you hear that on the purported mono track, then for sure you've got the remix. And of course, there are other new effects all over the place, but that's an easy way to check. But yeah, thankfully this is corrected. I know some people have ordered this from Gruv and gotten the original pressing, and but they were able to do the exchange process. It's of course more helpful when you're ordering from Universal directly through their website. I will also say this is also a very glossy, rather sturdy book, and so is the slip box, which actually does have some embossing on both the front and the spine. So it is a bit more premium feeling, at least, than what I had expected. I expected something very generic. So, while I wish it used original poster art and had actual cases, and I wish it was the steel books in terms of at least the art they used. The savings in here and getting everything in one package of what they've released so far is great, and the more we buy of these, the more support we show for these. Hopefully Universal will do the rest of their Hitchcock canon, because it's long overdue, and it really sucks that we only get 4 titles right now instead of the whole canon. That also goes for the other one that I couldn't resist. They, of course, did the 4-film taster set, I like to call them, of the classic monster horror films, the bread and butter, the entire iconic nature of what the Universal name inspires in all of our minds. So this gets you Dracula, Frankenstein, and the Invisible Man, and the Wolfman. It's a bit of an odd selection. It does leave out some of the iconic big titles as well, particularly The Mummy and especially Bride of Frankenstein. So it leaves me, dying to find out what the new transfer of Bride might be like. And like the Hitchcock set, these are all new 4K transfers. I do believe some of the work does stem from the original 2010-2012 restoration work that was done for what came out on Blu-ray, but it does follow the exact same style. You have the, again, nicer than you'd think slip box. This is embossed, as is the spine, and it does have the nice reflective quality printing on the 4K logo and the back. You get the same rather sturdy, very thick gloss disc book. I never know what you call these, so I guess disc book is the best description. And my favorite touch is on the back. They have the iconic Universal Picture globe logo with the circling plane. So I thought that was just a beautiful touch. And then on the inside, you have nice glossy photos. These are some of the same ones that were in the original UK slimmed down Blu-ray box of the first release on Blu-ray that a lot of us imported. And then you have the same design. So you have the 4K UHD side and the Blu-ray side. And here, just like the Hitchcock set, the Blu-rays are replicating the original disc, so they are exactly the same, right down to having the same labels we're used to seeing now. You do have to be, of course, very careful sliding these in and out, but again, it has gotten a little better. And there is a sort of coating on the interior paper, so it's not as bad as it could be, but this is, again, never how you should package a disc, because the discs are what really matter. I don't know why they hate discs, apparently. The UHDs have a similar label, but here it's solid instead of being that sort of reflective printed on quality. And of course, you have all the new logos for the new gratings and such. In terms of the transfers, just like the Hitchcock set, they are massive improvements on pretty much every title. I do have major issues with some things on the old Hitchcock Blu-rays, just as I do on the original Blu-rays for the monster films. They were the best in terms of technical quality we had ever gotten to this point, but some had more issues than others, and especially the Wolfman. It didn't look very good. The opening credits were window boxed, and in places it looked almost like an old 720p master or an upscaled DVD. I don't know why that happened, but of all the titles, I think the Wolfman has the most dramatic night and day improvement. So when you get this set, you are going to have the most wow factor putting in the UHD of the Wolfman. In terms of the others, it is much more of a increase in detail and little fine details, and getting the grayscale and the silvery look of the original nitrate across a little bit better. So if you look at screen caps of these, you will be able to notice that it is a lot of fine detail that you're getting better realized on the UHDs than the original Blu-rays for the earlier films. But it's really only the Wolfman that has the dramatic, holy crap, this looks like a new movie experience. I will also say it has been noticed that, unfortunately, at least in one shot or one moment in Frankenstein, that apparently there was some automatic noise removal that got a little bit too carried away. So if you go on Capsaholic, you can actually look at it, but it's in the iconic scene with the unfortunate little Maria by the lake. That at one point, if you were, freeze framing through, you would see that accidentally the monster's hand, just say the creature's hand, accidentally gets taken out by some automated noise removal. So that's unfortunate. It is something that was discovered and shouldn't have happened, but that kind of stuff can occur. It doesn't, obviously derail the transfer, and it is far better than what was on the previous Blu-ray. And the other thing I will mention, because this is a pet peeve of mine and it is very important, but it doesn't get covered very often, because these films are so old and they were so popular and they were played to death, they've had to have real multiple hardcore restorative attempts behind them, particularly Dracula and Frankenstein most of all. That also meant restoring elements and bits of the soundtrack that were censored originally. And of course also the post-production code reissues. Once the code was in effect, they had to make further cuts and changes. So the audio, especially because these are early talkies and they don't have musical scores per se, it has a very high noise floor. They're very noisy, and that's how they were originally. But on all of these films, they have been subjected to a lot of audio work, and new audio work was also performed on the Blu-rays as well, adding additional layers of noise reduction and hiss reduction and things. So while they sound fine, and some do sound better than others, I do think that with these films, you do have to go to a lot of trouble trying to find better sounding versions. The audio tracks on the UHDs are the same as what was on the Blu-rays, so they had the same issues as those. Again, some sound better than others, and most people aren't going to really notice anything because they just think, oh, it's old single channel mono. But on some titles, I do think the cleanup has been way too overzealous. Frankenstein is really the key title where if you go back to older releases, you can notice a dramatic difference. But of course, going back even further, you will lose the restoration of the iconic "Now I Know What It Feels Like to Be God" line, which didn't appear until the DVD release, which itself had some noise reduction and things like that. But it can be a dramatic difference on Frankenstein when you go back to, say, the original VHS release or the encore restored Laserdisc from the late 80s, or especially if you can ever find the very rare Japanese Laserdisc reissue from the 90s. I do have the Japanese LD for Dracula, and it is probably the best sounding version overall, even though the opening credits are a little bit, they don't sound as good as the DVD from 1999, of course. But with all these films, it is varied, and they all sound okay. They sound good on Blu-ray, but they could sound much better. Frankenstein is the one that's the most notable in that regard. But again, these films have been reissued and cleaned up and restored and worked on so many times that they all have their individual little quirks, and if you're a hardcore Universal Monsters fan, you probably already know a lot of this stuff, and you've bought them many times over and over and over again. So we do have to show support for these releases, so Universal will continue to do them. So I'm hoping this is obviously just volume 1, or we get eventually a box set of the main titles, because usually they always package the main 6, 7, 8 titles together. So it is strange not having The Mummy and Bride of Frankenstein and Creature from the Black Lagoon, and they always toss in the 1943 color remake of The Phantom of the Opera as well. So it's a bit weird not having those. I would love to see Son of Frankenstein. That would be a 4K disc for the ages, because that film is so beautifully shot, and it's from the golden year of 1939, and it's really the other top tier golden Universal horror that doesn't get reissued with the others as much. And of course, The Old Dark House was released on a gorgeous Blu-ray by Cohen and Masters of Cinema, and that would supplement this release as well. And of course, we can dream about having a complete 4K box set to match the complete 30 film set that was finally released on Blu-ray, because that was a nice improvement on most of the other titles, of the monster and horror films, and of course other titles in Universal Horror have been released by Shout Factory and Kino Lorber and Masters of Cinema. So it is possible to build a near complete or complete collection of Universal Horror in HD, but this is our first taste of the 4K treatment. So here is the shot of all the spines. And again, this whole set, or this whole slate that I put together, this whole order, was just absurdly cheap, especially with that 20% off coupon. It was packaged extremely well with a nice box and a lot of air pillows. No complaints whatsoever. Very fast turnaround. These got here much quicker than I expected. So since they're running sales all the time and they frequently have coupons, that seems to be a continual thing. So if you're looking for great stocking stuffers for the movie fan and cinephile in your life, or you're looking for some stuff for yourself, because that's of course what we all wind up doing, Christmas shopping, you can still probably get these in enough time. There are some fantastic deals to be had, and it's not just for films. It's for television shows as well, and you never know what pops up from the Universal catalog. They even had the Shout Factory big Abbott and Costello Blu-ray box set pop up, but that went out of stock in like 2 seconds. So with the 20% off coupon, that thing was, I think it was under $50, and that is like it's usually I think it's like $120 retail, or maybe $140, something like that. So that was an extreme savings, but so were all of these. So I would definitely recommend checking out the Gruv.com website if you're looking for anything that is handled by Universal, whether it be a Universal title or simply distributed by them, because there are some fantastic bargains to be had that pop up, and I'm very happy that I finally decided to take the plunge and get in the groove, I guess you could say. So that's this particular haul of Blu-rays and DVDs and UHDs. Again, I would recommend checking out their site if you haven't. It's full of fantastic bargains, and again, really, really easy to use. The navigation is a little bit weird trying to find particular discs, but their sales are clearly marked. And again, those 10 and 20% off coupons really help a lot. So check it out if you haven't. Leave some comments below with what you think, if you've ordered from them or if you're going to be ordering from them. But if you're still looking for stocking stuffers, there are some great deals to be had. As always, thanks ever so much for watching, and keep your disc spinning, keep physical media alive.